All right, what's going on, boys? Welcome back once again. I appreciate you taking the time to come out.
Yeah, thanks for having us again.
Yeah, for sure.
Looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, no, it's awesome because, I had just spoken with you guys when you had, just gotten your Korn Ferry Tour status. And a lot has happened since then, so we're going to go into, you playing your first PGA Tour event. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about, today about really the business that you guys have built and kind of the story behind that. So really wanted to start first and foremost with the Monday qualifying for PGA Tour events and then talk about the event itself.
Okay. Yeah. Monday qualifying for a PGA Tour event. I mean, I think it's actually a little easier. Like once you get through the pre-Q stage, the PGA Tour Mondays, typically the fields are a little smaller than a Korn Ferry one because people can just sign right up for the Monday. But I mean, the ones down here can be a little more difficult because there's a lot of guys that live down here. But overall, the PGA Tour Mondays seem to be a little bit easier to get through, which is unusual. But
interesting. Yeah, I had
smaller field sizes, and there's a lot of exemptions into the Mondays from older PGA Tour players that will sometimes show up or whatnot, and then just all the pre-Qs, but the pre-Qs don't fill up a ton of the spots. Unless you're in a Korn Ferry off week, that's when the PGA Tour Mondays fill up a little more for all the status guys that say, oh, you know what, I'm not playing a Korn Ferry event this week, I'm going to go try and qualify for the PGA Tour event. So there's a select, probably 6 or 7 throughout the year that are a little tougher. But I mean, we've played in some PGA Tour Mondays in the past that had 40 guys in the field playing for 4 spots.
With your status, do you have to still play? You don't play pre-Qs anymore, right? It's just straight to Monday?
Yeah, you can go right to the Monday.
Yeah, that's a big advantage, man. One that saves you money, too, that saves you time and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, quite a bit of money. It's $100 instead of $500. And if you want to travel for one, you can just kind of fly out and back real quick and play just the Monday and not have to stay the whole week if you play a pre-Q like the Thursday or the Wednesday before. So yeah, there's that advantage of it. But, there's also, you got to kind of pick your route. There's a lot of different routes you could take. You can either just focus on Korn Ferry solely, trying to keep that status. The PGA Tour, the upside of the PGA Tour is the money. You're not really going to get status through qualifying for a PGA Tour event unless you win.
I was going to say, unless you win or play out of your mind.
You got a top 10 multiple weeks in a row, and even then you're not really guaranteed. I mean, there's stories of a couple of guys in the past that did that, and they never even got any status out of it. And you're like, how? The guy made $1.5 million and he didn't even get PGA Tour status because your points are just worthless. You have to earn a certain amount by a certain point in the season. There's a lot of factors. It's all confusing. I still don't fully understand it, but basically you want to win. That's how you'll get it for sure.
Simple enough, right?
Yeah,
it should be.
Cool. So talk to me a little bit about, just the Monday Q round in itself. I think you shot 6 under? Is that correct?
6 under, yeah.
I mean, was it a grindy round? Was it pretty much just kind of cruising? You can shoot 6 under 2 different ways. At least I've found. You can really get after it and feel like you missed everything and shoot 6 under, or you can feel like you made everything and shoot 6 under.
Yeah, no, it was cruising for about 13 holes. I think I was 7 under through 13. And at that point you're like, okay, I'm not a scoreboard watcher. I just knew if I could get in at that or one lower, that's pretty good. And I actually made a triple bogey on my 14th hole.
You blocked the tee shot right?
I hit 2 balls out of play. One OB and one in a hazard. I had to drop and then didn't convert a birdie on that second tee shot. So at that point I was back to 4, 3 holes to play. I was like, okay. At that point you're like, you kind of, I thought I just played myself out of it. But fortunately birdied the next 2, my 16th and 17th hole, and then saved the par on the last hole, and then just kind of was like, okay, now let's wait and see.
So it's interesting, obviously, because there's some parallels from the story at Q-School. What do you think attributed to that triple? Because obviously on a day where you're playing well, it's probably not the golf swing, or is it just, I just made a bad swing? Like, do you
Yeah,
contribute to anything? Do you learn anything from it?
it's probably a little bit of like overthinking, mental error, because when you're in that position, if and it was like probably the toughest tee shot of the day, like super narrow, OB
As
left,
of
water right,
course.
and it's like okay, like probably made a club decision mistake too. Like it was a par 5, but they moved the tee box up, so the landing area of where the driver is like much narrower. But I'd hit every fairway, so I was like, you know what, I like it. I like the driver. Just gonna swing it. But I probably could have just hit like a 3 iron out to the left or a 3 wood and left myself a longer shot in and just tried to like play for par. And then if you make birdie, you make birdie. But yeah, I think there's also just a little bit of like the overthinking factor of like, okay, like we're in a good position. Like, don't make a bad swing when you should just be thinking about like one shot at a time. Like, there's my spot. Like, let me just hit it. You can't be thinking about the outcome. You just got to think about like, what do I need to do right now? That's
Yeah,
it.
it's amazing like I've done it so many times too. I think we've all probably done it, but like the indecision in a moment like that, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna make a terrible swing. Like I don't know, what it is. You just don't fully commit to it. Maybe depending on what your miss is, maybe you don't release it, or maybe you over release it, or whatever. And I feel like in every situation like that, I've almost always made a bad swing. So I mean, it sounds like it was a good learning. You still got away with it. You still were able to get into the PGA Tour event, but it sounds like you learned from that experience as well.
Yeah, and there's also the element of when you think about Monday qualifying, a lot of times you can go in saying, well, I need to play aggressive all day. But then you find yourself in a position like that where he was, I think, 7 under through 12 holes. And then we got to the 15th hole. And, maybe you didn't need to play aggressive there, but, your mindset going in, unfortunately, it's one of those holes where you probably started thinking about the tee shot a couple holes earlier. Like it's that kind of tee shot.
Yep,
It
got
just
it.
kind of messes with your head a little bit. So, it's one of those things. And like you said, hopefully learn from it a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's. So I had Claude Harmon on the show, and he talked about Brooks Koepka's strategy in terms of like he will play the first 5 holes, and that will determine his strategy for like the rest of the round. Obviously, it's a little different in the Monday qualifier, but like if he's hitting it good, he'll play the first 5 holes and hit it good. He'll go keep playing aggressive throughout the rest of the day. If he's not hitting it good, then he'll just kind of scrape it around and take care of the par 5s. So like that's a day for you guys where you're probably feeling pretty good about yourself. Let's keep the foot on the gas, and yeah, no, but that's awesome. I think it's great that you were able to bounce back from that. Making a triple that late. Obviously, the thoughts then in your mind start racing. Everything starts speeding up. I know similar to like what you experienced at Q-School, but awesome to be able to bring it back in and then be able to ultimately qualify for the tour event. So now let's talk about the tour week. I know Charlie and I were talking a little bit like you guys probably didn't maybe have enough time when you Monday qualify like that to prep like you normally would. So maybe talk me through a little bit of prep that week and then of course the week itself.
Yeah, so this one was a little different. You weren't local to the event. Typically, when you do a Monday qualifier, like you still have one day less of prep. But this one was almost like 2 days less because after getting home that night, basically had to plan travel, like flights, car, lodging for Puerto Rico, and then leave in the morning. Didn't really get to the golf course until like 2:30, and only had a chance to like see half the golf course, play 9 holes because Wednesday they do a pro-am. So the golf course is pretty much closed off for all the guys in the field that are full members and whatnot that play in the pro-am. But we kind of just took it easy. We're like, you know what, let's just enjoy the experience. Play 9 holes, did a quick walk of the front just to like give it a look. Fortunately, the golf course was pretty out in front of you, wide. Just some of the sight lines were a little weird, like where the bunkers were, getting used to like the yardage book, all that stuff. But yeah, it was 9 holes, good night's sleep, and then light practice on Wednesday. Didn't do too much. It was hot, so I was like, let's just get well rested. We were tired from Monday and then the travel the day before, just a couple really early mornings. So then Thursday comes and 7:50 a.m. tee time, and we were as ready as we were going to be in that situation. So got off to a pretty good start, which was nice, and then kind of same thing, mind racing a little bit, playing well, and then just started overthinking. And then we got to the 9 that I didn't really get to see, and I think I was just a little uncomfortable on just some of the tee shots, some like where the good spots to leave the ball was, because the golf course was on the longer side, and it was wet. So, there was a lot of shots where I probably played a little too aggressive hitting longer irons in, 4s, 5s, 6 irons. Just needed to play to like the middle of the green. But once again, that's why the following round was a little smoother in that sense. Like we kind of had a little better idea of the golf course and where we wanted to hit it, especially the tee shots, just like the lines, getting comfortable there. But yeah, as far as the prep goes, it was pretty minimal. Ideally, we'd probably like to do like 9 holes Monday, 9 holes Tuesday, some light practice after, and then Wednesday you're either in the Pro-Am or you're doing some light practice, hitting some balls, hitting some shots that you think you're going to hit on the golf course, and getting used to the grass. The grass was a little different, like hitting a lot of chip shots, whatnot, see how the greens react, all that.
Yeah, and I mean, you start to realize that your whole process changes. So from the caddy's perspective, I'm trying to make sure I get all the yardages, all the info, and have it ready for him. So, he doesn't have as much to think about. But, it changes so much from like our mini tour events where we have a laser, right? Because you're at the ball, you shoot the laser, and people don't realize how important pre-shot routine is. And you get so used to your exact routine, and the timing of it. So now we get up to the ball, and I was doing all my work fine, but I think Dawson the first day felt himself kind of standing there, and he's waiting for me to get all the info, and not that he wasn't also calculating stuff in his head, but I just think it changes your routine enough that it's just tweaking your whole thought process. So between rounds, we kind of spoke about that a little bit, and then I think we made some little changes so that the second day, I think it was a little better. We got the information a little quicker. We were kind of talking it over as we were walking up to the ball. And it adds up to a little bit more comfortability, which is always going to add up to better shots and lower scores. So it's all part of the process of getting used to playing in a tour event that has so many different elements, whether it's the fans or the circus that's going on around the event, pace of play, just the way they set up the course. So it was a great learning experience from that perspective.
Yeah, I would say that would be one thing that I actually hadn't even thought of, but makes total sense. If you're sitting there and you're waiting and you're so used to, you being real quick, hey, here's cover number, here's pin number, here's whatever it is, and then now you either have to pace it off or whatever else, you kind of end up probably standing around for a little bit longer than what you're used to, and that can obviously throw off the rhythm and the timing too. I mean, it sounds like you guys really learned a lot. Do you think you'll practice any sort of rounds like that where maybe you don't use a rangefinder, or is it just that we just know when we go here, that's what we're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in the future is almost like don't even bring a rangefinder out in the practice rounds and just like do the numbers, do the walking, like all that beforehand. Maybe bring it just to like shoot some things, like just to have an idea. But overall, like, get up to the shot and just go through the routine you'd go through on the golf course. Yeah, because that's what I kind of told him after the first round. I think I was just like, I feel like we were like getting the number, and by the time we got the number, I was just like rushing to hit the shot because it like takes a little longer. And also there's part of like trusting the number, getting comfortable with it. Like you're pacing and then doing some math, and you just have to like be like, okay, it's 173, like that's what we got, so we have to play that number.
Yeah, it's kind of like, are you sure it's 173? Like.
Yeah, no, yeah. But like it's getting comfortable and trusting that too. Like it is like it's right. Like you did it, you walked it off, you did the math correctly. But it definitely messes with I'm a quick player for the most part.
Yeah, you are.
So like I usually like to I have my club in hand typically like a minute before I hit my shot, and like now it's almost like it's my turn and we haven't like determined like what I'm gonna hit yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So normally, I'm already waiting, thinking about like the wind and how hard I'm gonna hit it, and all this and that. Versus like I felt like I was kind of like rushing myself. Like once I got my club in hand, instead of just taking time. And also, it didn't help that in the first round we got put on the clock like probably 8 holes in, and I mean, whatever. It was just a lot of stuff, and then it's like, oh, now we're rushing. It's like, why? The guys in our group aren't rushing. They're not going to penalize us. They don't penalize a slow pace of play.
Yeah, they'll just put everyone on the clock and
exactly
keep it rolling.
Yep.
So how different would you say conditions of course were, were the greens real firm or fast? I know you said it was wet, so maybe they weren't firm, but was the rough grown up? Like is it really dramatically different from some of the higher level mini tour stuff you play? in terms of course conditions, maybe setups?
Course conditions were obviously a little better, like much better. The greens were good. They weren't super fast, but I think that golf course is supposed to play windy, so they do that for a reason. But I think in the past, like we spoke to some other guys that had played this tournament before, and they said it was the softest they'd ever seen it. So I think that was a little different. I mean, I assume it probably plays a little firmer than it did when we played, but they just had some rain. The golf course was like right next to a rainforest. They had some rain like the day before and the night before. But in that aspect, no, it played like pretty similar, just longer, a lot longer. Probably played 7,400, 7,500. But once again, that's not like a huge factor. Usually it's just the firmness and the pins. The pins are the big one in these events. They stick them all three off the edge, every corner, front, back, middle, right, whatever. In a mini tour event, you don't really get that as much. It's more like 6, 7, 8, 9 off the edge. So that aspect of it's a little harder. And the rough there, I mean, it's all like paspalum grass, so they typically don't grow it. I mean, there was some spots that were not good, like quite a bit off the fairway, but I'm sure it changes week by week. This one I think played a little easier than your typical tour event.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that tournament was won in a playoff, right? With Aldrich and the other guy, or am I thinking of another event?
No, that was Mexico. This
was
one,
Mexico.
Carl Phillips won.
Carl won this tournament. Nice.
Yeah.
He's got a cool story. I've watched him on YouTube since he was like 6 years old. So that's pretty cool. So getting back to the rest of the week, I mean, it kind of sounds like in general you guys really learned a lot. I think, unfortunately, as you're growing, I've found this in my personal life as of late, as you're growing, things can be uncomfortable sometimes, but it doesn't always particularly mean it's bad. And it sounds like you guys are growing like crazy right now. You're obviously, having a lot of success, and it's really cool to see all of the learning that I would say you guys are probably doing, and how much more prepared you're going to be for the next one.
Yeah, and I think the really good sign was that, even though we did have some moments of maybe uncomfortability, he made 8 birdies in 2 rounds, which was plenty enough to make the cut. And
that's awesome.
I think that shows a lot, you know what I mean? Because I think a lot of guys that Monday, they go out there and, they shoot their 1 or 2 over, which, he did finish 1 over. We had a couple mistakes, and we played aggressive at the end, which kind of led to that. But I think the fact of making 8 birdies and being comfortable enough to do that and execute the way you should, basically, in a way, put us in the position to make the cut, which is doing your job. Just had a couple things that, you need to clean up, which, like you said, I think the next one,
get some more reps.
We'll be ready for it.
No, I definitely have confidence you guys keep getting reps. I mean, it's the proof's in the pudding. So I'd like to pivot here for a second and talk a little bit about really something that we didn't get into on the first one, which is kind of your guys' backstories. I know from talking to you at St. Albans and after that, you both left great, high-paying jobs to sort of pursue this, start this as sort of a business venture. So I really wanted to talk a little bit about that, so for the viewers at home, have some context about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so back in 2015 is when we met. I was affiliated with Eagle Oaks Golf and Country Club for really all my life back in New Jersey. And Dawson started working there in the bag room when he was about 16 or 17 years old. So we met, we started playing and practicing together a little bit. And as it went on, the following summer, after he came back from college, he had the 2016 New Jersey State Amateur, and I decided to go out and follow him. And his father, Dana, was caddying for him, which, just so everybody knows, his father, Dana, and our good friend Joe Ouchie caddied for him in all his amateur events, and they were on the bag for all his big amateur wins. So, they helped lay the groundwork for, where we are now. So anyway, I followed him in the 36-hole last day of the State Am, and at a certain point in the round, I think it was through eight holes, Dawson was in the lead. And then the next 10 holes didn't go so great, and I'm sure, as he would say, it just made some mistakes. And he ended up grinding it out the final 18 just to be top 15, which got him exempt into the next year's State Am. Fast forward later that summer, I caddied for him in the USAM qualifying, which at the time used to be 36 in one day. And we also didn't qualify that day, but after seeing him for 36 holes, on the course in a tournament is kind of when I saw it for myself, okay, this guy, he really has it. And I remember telling him and his father, later that night that, I thought he had great potential, and that he could be top 50 in the world, and that was his potential. And, that's still our goal now. And so, that was cool to see. At that point, after that, I started work as the assistant pro at Eagle Oaks, and it was a great job for me, and really close with all the members and ownership there. Basically, Dawson had graduated college. He had a nice amateur career, and I'll let him tell you about the job he was working. At a certain point, we had this opportunity come up, and we started the business together. We had a good friend that's our business partner that kind of helped make a dream reality for us. But I'll let him tell you about the job that he was working at the time before when we started this.
Yeah, so when I graduated college, I graduated bachelor's degree 2019. I stayed for a fifth year to do a master's degree in accounting. And then obviously after that was 2020. So when I was finishing up my master's degree, that's when COVID kind of started. And I was already kind of teetering between going to work or maybe trying to play golf at that point. Obviously, tour seasons, all that stuff was very up in the air because of COVID. And so I wasn't really sure if there was even going to be a season or anything to play in, whatnot. And I already had done some interviews and got a job offer at KPMG in public accounting, which I decided to take. So that was a long 2 years working in audit services at home. It was a good experience, though. I learned a lot, met a lot of good people. I played a little bit of golf, not as much as I would have wanted. 9 holes here and there. Went to the range once in a while. I did play one tournament from 2020 to 2022 while I was working there. But yeah, when I started looking for kind of new work towards late summer of 2022. Just at another company and whatnot. And then he reached out and mentioned that there was an opportunity to play professional golf. And I was like, I kind of didn't even really think about it. I was just like, hell yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it. So then I left my job in October of 2022 and started playing golf. Moved down here and got it going.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think I think a lot of people can really relate to that, and they don't understand maybe some of the sacrifices or different things that maybe others have had to help with. And I think that's really cool that you guys are doing this and have really treated it like a business. Like, that's what I really respect about both of you, is this is very professional. This is a business. This is obviously something you're passionate about, both of you, and you both enjoy it. But at the end of the day, like, it is a business. This is something that is there to make money, which I think you both have gone about it in a very good way, which I would attribute a good deal of your success to that, in that mentality. So I think that's really cool.
For sure. I agree with you.
Right, so we're going to pivot now onto talking all about me. I have been really not struggling, but I'm really looking for a way to get my short game and my scoring, my scrambling better. Like I was telling Charlie, I played in the wind the other day. I played 9 holes, made 4 birdies and shot even par, and had just 4 blown terrible up and downs. And I'm just really trying to look for a way to work on my short game better. So maybe you could tell the viewers at home how they could improve their short games, or kind of what you do to work on your short game and your scoring.
Yeah, I would say short game is a tough one. For me, it's a lot of just repetition and variability. I like to just drop balls in weird spots, random spots, bad lies, and just chip. I hit a lot of shots just from around the green. I'm in a ton of different situations. I don't do any specific drills. But I will say one thing you can do is kind of just work on visualizing the shot you're trying to hit. Okay, drop 3 balls, 4 balls in the same spot to a short-sided pin and say okay, I'm going to bump 2, I'm going to hit 2 high, I'm going to try and spin 1. And just try and hit different shots. It's no different than being on the range and trying to hit a couple draws, a couple fades. But I would say a big one's repetition in that, and don't always give yourself good lies. Drop them in weird lies, weird spots. It forces you to hit a certain shot. And another thing is, mess around with an open club face, closed club face, trying to hook it, trying to cut it. But that one, yeah, there are some pretty good drills. I've seen people drop alignment sticks down and be okay, I'm going to try and fly the alignment stick, but keep it short of the pin. Or I'm going to try and land it, short of the stick and have it, roll out past the pin. But that one's short game's tricky because some people it's like it's kind of an art and it's like a feel thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to master it. Like I've been having a little struggling with my short game right now, and it's not necessarily bad. It's just 50% of the time it's not good, and then the other 50% of the time it is good. But it's so sporadic. Like one round it's good, one round it's not. And same thing in practice. Like sometimes I feel like I'm chipping it really good or hitting the shots I want to hit, contact wise, spin wise, everything. But I think a lot of it's just repetition. You just sit there for 2 hours and just focus on your ball contact, the shot you're trying to hit, landing it in certain spots. And then I guess as far as putting goes, same thing. Like drills, like work on your alignment, get comfortable with your setup, and then everything else kind of just has to change week in and week out from there, depending on the course you're playing. Greens are fast, greens are slow. But those are something you adjust yourself to. But yeah, I mean, repetition. Don't go hit balls. Go sit there and chip for an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's basically the base of the golf swings. I noticed that sometimes like I won't even go hit balls. I'll just hit like shots inside of 50 yards, and it actually helps with like tempo in my full golf swing and just overall ball contact because you're focused just on like the very bottom of the swing, like where you're hitting the ball versus like getting up here and being like, oh, my arm is up here. It's like, no, it doesn't matter. All that matters is like how you are at impact.
Yeah, you touched there on something that I really like that I've been finding with a lot of very good players and very good coaches is it's all about ball contact. Like you didn't mention one time in short game, hey, think about doing this with the club, think about doing this with shaft angle or think about doing this with whatever, VSP or like all these different things. You're like, try and cut the ball, try and hook the ball, try and spin it, try and hit. Like it's all things that you're trying to do with the golf ball. Because at the end of the day, like we're doing something with the ball. And I really like that that's how you framed it. And I've definitely been finding that the parallels in the better players and the better coaches, like that is what they're teaching and that is what works. I mean, that was one of the things that I was like blown away with Claude Harmon because I thought for sure he would have like a method and like, you have to have the club here or club there. And I mean, it was none of that. It was winning and it was what are you doing with the golf ball? And that's it. You know what I mean? So which I think you guys really embody that. So I think it's definitely cool to see and see those parallels. So
yeah, it's like getting away from the technical side of it,
Yes.
Like, of course you need to be technical in some aspects. Like if you're struggling, like go back to the fundamentals. Be like, okay, like is my grip right? Is the club face? Am I standing too close to it? Standing too far? And then from there, you can't get too technical. Like everyone has their own style, and you just need to work with that. And obviously, conditions change and everything. Like if you're chipping off Zoysia, you can hit 7 different shots for any chip shot. You can open the club face, you can spin it, you can hit high, soft, low, spinny, whatever. Like when you're down here, to be honest, one of the things that should make chipping a little easier, depending on the lie, you're kind of forced into only hitting like 1 or 2 different types of shots. You're either bumping it or you're trying to just like chop at it, spin it, whatever. But yeah, I just say stay away from the technical side of stuff with chipping and just focus on your ball contact and try and visualize just the shot you're trying to hit and don't think about the outcome of it too much.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a good point to the average player, like a lot of the viewers that you're talking about. They tend to watch guys on TV and some of the tour players. I mean, they're so good with their wedges and they can nip it and they can control the spin, they can control the height. I mean, this takes so much practice and everything like that. But for the average player, sometimes when you get up to a shot, it may not be a wedge shot. I mean, I know for myself, anytime I can putt it from off the green, I putt it because I'm very good with my putter. But you need to know your strengths. Not to be afraid to take an 8 or a 7 iron and just bump it if you can. Obviously, there's some times where you've got to wedge it over a bunker or, if you're in the rough, then that may dictate exactly what you need to do. But in general, I just think that you need to get comfortable with a variety of shots, but then it is good to have your go-to shot or what, under pressure, certainly what works for you. Because, we all get in that situation in a tournament or even if it's just around with friends where you're playing for money. And when you're just a little bit tense, if you add that into something that you're not completely comfortable with, it's probably going to add up to a bad shot. So anytime, like I said, anytime I can keep it simple and get a putter or bump and run in my hand, I do it. And then I try to work on the wedges as much as I can in my practice, knowing that that's a little bit of a weakness for me. And then hopefully at some point it'll click and you'll have that one thought that is going to help you with the wedges. But I just think it's overused for sure, where people just think I'm pitching now from around the green. I've got to grab my 60 degree. And that's just not true for most players.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with all of that. I think at least what's improved somewhat in my short game over the last year is the implementation of different clubs like pitching wedges and that sort of thing. Yeah, awesome information. I know, Dawson, you are in the middle of a minor league golf tour event right now. You shot, 5 or 6 under yesterday, so we'll go ahead and probably wrap this thing up right now. But I'd like to just give you guys a chance to shout out any sponsors, any contributors, anybody else that you would like to talk about in wrapping up here.
Yeah, well, we're excited actually right now. We just got our first shipment from Dunning Golf, our quarterly shipment. So we're going to open that up after we get off with you and look through some of the clothing and see what he's got to be excited about coming up. Obviously, Jones Golf, they're always a big supporter of ours, and Alero belts. And Titleist helps him out with balls and gloves and FootJoy shoes. Eagle Oaks Golf and Country Club back in New Jersey, that's where we met. None of this would have started without that place and all the members. Certainly those are the keys for us.
Awesome. I'd like to give a shout out to Summit Rejuvenation and Strokes Gained Electrolytes. They help make this program happen. So thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you guys being such great supporters of the show and wish you continued success. Can't wait to have you on after you win the first tour event or get into the next one. So
great.
All right, thanks, AJ.
We're ready.
Thanks,